What animal killed the ancient humans? Everyone assumes it was a lion, or maybe a saber-toothed cat, something with a mouth like a bear trap and a roar that echoes across the savannah. That's the image we've been handed: early humans, spears in hand, fighting off the king of beasts. That's not really how it went. Because when scientists started looking closely at the actual bones, really closely, with tools we didn't have even 20 years ago, the picture that came back was stranger, smaller, quieter, and honestly a little more disturbing than a lion attack. Let's start with a skull, a small one, found in South Africa in 1924, belonging to a child who died about 2 million years ago. For decades, people assumed a big tat got her, maybe a leopard, maybe one of those extinct saber-tooths, open and shut case. Except there were two strange little holes near the eye sockets that nobody could explain. Too small for a cat's canines, wrong shape entirely. It took until 2006 for a researcher named Lee Berger to figure out what actually made them, and the answer was not a mammal at all. It was a bird. Specifically, something like a crowned eagle, the kind that still lives in African forests today and can pluck a monkey clean off a branch. Eagles don't crush skulls the way big cats do. They go for the eyes first with their talons to get at the soft tissue underneath. And the marks on that child's skull lined up almost exactly with eagle feeding damage on modern monkey remains. Not a perfect match. Researchers are upfront that it's still debated, but close enough that most paleoanthropologists now take it seriously. A bird killed a member of the human family tree from the sky while she was 3.5 years old. That's worth sitting with for a second. And here's the thing. That's not even the predator that did the most damage to us historically. There's one near the very end of the story that doesn't have teeth, claws, or wings, and it's responsible for more dead members of our species than every big cat, hyena, and crocodile in history combined. We'll get there. It's worth the wait. So, if it wasn't always lions, and sometimes it was eagles, who else was on the list? This is where it gets interesting, because for a long time, anthropologists believed something called the killer ape theory, that early humans like Australopithecus were violent enough to be smashing each other's skulls in for sport or territory. Raymond Dart, the scientist who first described that species back in the 1920s, wrote about our species' blood-bespattered, slaughter-gutted history like it was basically destiny. Turns out he was reading the evidence backwards. A researcher named C.K. Brain went back to the same caves decades later and realized the bone damage everyone assumed was hominins killing hominins was actually just leopard kills. Leopards drag prey into trees and feed on it slowly over days, which leaves a very particular pattern of puncture marks. Once Brain laid leopard bite patterns next to the murder mystery evidence, they matched almost perfectly. So, the murder mystery wasn't us killing us, it was leopards the whole time, just eating quietly in a tree above the crime scene.
Now, here's where it gets specific, because vague claims aren't really claims. In 2025, a team trained an AI on nearly 1,500 photos of bite marks made by lions, leopards, hyenas, and crocodiles, all the big predators that would have shared the landscape with early humans in East Africa. Then, they pointed it at actual fossilized bones from Homo habilis, found at Olduvai Gorge, around 1.5 to 2 million years old. The AI came back with leopards, again, with over 90% confidence. And that mattered for a reason that isn't obvious at first. Homo habilis is usually taught as the species where humans started becoming predators. First stone tools, first real meat eating, the beginning of our climb of the food chain. But if leopards were actively hunting them this late in our evolution, that climb happened a lot slower than the textbooks suggest. We weren't apex anything yet. We were still, occasionally, lunch. Leopards weren't even the scariest thing out there, though, just the sneakiest. The genuinely terrifying one was a creature called Pachycracuta, an extinct hyena roughly the size of a lion, with a mouth wide enough to fully wrap around a hominin's skull. It lived alongside early human ancestors for millions of years, on and off, from about 3 million years ago down to 500,000 years ago. Picture something with the build of a hyena, but scaled up to lion proportions, and a bite strong enough to crack bone just to get at the marrow inside. Not subtle, not patient like a leopard, just enormous and hungry. Side note, and I promise this connects back, some researchers think competition with giant hyenas like this one might have actually pushed early humans towards smarter social cooperation. Since you can't outmuscle something that size, you have to outthink it. I don't think that's settled science, but it's a nice thought to sit with. So that's the gauntlet. Eagles from above, leopards waiting in the branches, giant hyenas built like demolition equipment, and crocodiles too, patient in the rivers we had to cross for water.
But none of them, not one, comes close to the actual deadliest animal in the story of our species. It's the mosquito. Not metaphorically, literally. Malaria transmitted by mosquitoes has likely killed more humans across all of history than any other single cause of death tied to an animal, predator or otherwise. No claws, no bite marks on a skull for some future scientist to puzzle over 1,000,000 years from now. Just a parasite riding in on a needle-thin proboscis, doing its damage from the inside. It's almost unfair, honestly. Every predator we just talked about required strength, stealth, timing. The mosquito requires none of that. It just needs proximity. And that's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. We spent millions of years evolving instincts to fear the rustle in the grass, the shadow overhead, the thing with teeth. Meanwhile, the deadliest animal on the list was small enough to land on your arm without you noticing. So if you're keeping score, leopards picked us off quietly for at least 1,000,000 years longer than we like to admit. Giant hyenas could end an early human's existence in a single bite. An eagle killed a child near a cave in South Africa 2,000,000 years ago for reasons that took researchers 80 decades to even partly understand. And through all of it, in the background, the mosquito was outpacing every single one of them, generation after generation, with nothing but patience and a parasite. I think the reason this particular question stays interesting isn't really about who wins. It's that it quietly rewrites how tough we assume our ancestors were. We like the story where early humans were already clawing their way to the top of the food chain. The bones tell a slower, more humbling version, where for a very long stretch of our history, we were just one more thing in the landscape that something else was watching and waiting for the right moment. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about at random moments, there's more of it here. And somewhere out there, there's probably still a fossil sitting in a drawer in some university collection with a tooth mark nobody's looked closely enough at yet to identify.